I'm Calvin, and like many of you, I grew up in New York City. I have a pretty relatable childhood. I was born and raised in New York, and I had two tiger parents. And a lot of you can identify, this is my dad. No, really, this is my dad. And this was every day of my life. And we didn't have a very beautiful, loving relationship in the conventional sense. It was very contentious, and he didn't quite speak my love language. Even though he, and my mom, tag team, bad cop, decided that I should be a doctor, right, in a linear path, and I didn't have a choice. I knew that it's part of puberty. You decided to be a little rebellious. And just to prove that I'm even rebellious, I'm just zooming in right there. This is my quote. Korn was my favorite bands. You laugh at me because I'm different. Well, I laugh at you because you're all the same. And when in college, I took it to the next level. I became a bartender. Definitely was not going to be a doctor, and I definitely was going to break stereotypes. And this is when I started getting involved in the progressive Asian American movement and trying to do everything that was breaking the stereotype. And then one day, my dad and I got into another argument, just a typical argument, just screaming, yelling, and he goes on a treadmill to blow off some steam. I go and storm off to this party that I didn't tell him about, and he collapses and dies at a New York City sports club in Soho. Sudden heart attack, and I get a phone call from the FDNY saying that my dad has gone to cardiac arrest, and they couldn't bring him back, but they were going to take him to the hospital. And I went to the hospital, and he was already gone. Sad as I was also free. I decided to say, fuck it, I'm going to live my own life the way I wanted to, and that was definitely not becoming a doctor. So I gave up this pre-med life and decided to do everything that I ever wanted to do. So I became a bartender for life, and I was actually very happy. I met somebody, and I got a little drunk, and I made a bet, and that person was supposed to go to Egypt. And I never left the city. I never traveled, and I felt like the whole world comes to me anyway in New York City. So we made a bet, and the bet was, if tickets were under $700, I would go with them. That night, tickets went from $2,000 to $650, and I was too drunk to realize it, but they took my phone and they autofilled it. I'm a man of my word, and I said, yeah, I lost the bet, go for it. And I found myself in Egypt in the winter of 2010. Totally not prepared, and that's when they met me at the airport after that bet, and they were like, we have to leave. We can't stay here. That's why tickets were from $2,650. I didn't read the news at the time. They met in the airport, they felt bad, and were like, okay, before we leave you high and dry, you should come with us, meet us at the Oberoi Hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we go to the Oberoi Hotel, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then these Bedouins outside. And my friend that was there, she's an Egyptian, she told me to pick a horse. So I picked a horse. And she's like, just tell them that you've done this before. And then off I went. And he just basically cracks the whip, off I go. And I've never ridden a horse before. And I'm holding on for dear life. I am freaking out. I think I pissed my pants because it was very wet. I don't know, maybe the horse is sweating or something like that. And I didn't know how to move with the horse. So that was hurting. I'm riding, and I'm riding. All I know is just holding on for dear life. I have no idea where I'm going. No one gave me any instructions. All I am doing is holding on for dear life, and I got to keep riding. And then there's this guy behind me, this guy named Eduardo. We met him in the hostel, and he decided to join us, and he was like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, Eduardo, you sound like my dad right now. And it started hitting me, and he was like, Eduardo's right. He's looking out for me. But this is my horse, and that's his horse. And he can do whatever he wants with his horse. But for me, in that moment, he's right, but I got to keep riding. So I just held on to my horse, and I say, Eduardo, you're a good guy, but I got to keep going. And I keep riding, and I see then a fire in the distance, all right? And I was like, there's something there. I got to ride towards that fire. 20 minutes go by, or something that felt like 20 minutes. And then I see figures in the fire, and I see people pointing. I was like, pointing, just pointing. So I turn around, and this is what I see. This is the first photo I've ever took with my dad's camera. I started to hear the sound of the azan, the Muslim call to prayer. I realized that this is what I was writing for. I had no idea what my goal was, But the fact that I was writing towards something, in order to see this and to be a part of this, was the destination that was meant for me. And I remember coming back and realizing, is this all I wanted to do with my life? This whole doctor thing, that's what my dad wanted me to do. That's not what I wanted to do. But what if I'm actually meant to be a doctor this whole time? That I decided to live my entire life not becoming a doctor because of my dad, because of the Asian American stereotype? Then I'm trapped by the stereotype. Then I'm trapped by my father for the rest of my life. And then I was like, oh shit, this is my dad's ghost coming from the grave. I was like, oh, I'm playing mind games with you. So just like what I did with Egypt, I made a bet. I'll apply to every single medical school that I would go to and not get in anywhere. Okay, I had a 3.0 GPA. I failed 2 classes, and I bombed my MCATs, like way below average. And I was like, definitely not getting anywhere. And I wanted to just check that box off and just be like, I'm done with this. I'm not meant to be a doctor. And then one school said, we're trying something different. We're looking for humanities and medicine and people who can like treat patients with grace and humanity and people who are interesting people, not read from books all the time. So I got in. And I was like, shit. So the next part of the bet was to keep doing my life, keep bartending, keep living the life I've always wanted, and still do med school, and then hopefully, fail out and just know that I'm not meant to do it. I started med school at 0 countries, and I ended up traveling to 170 countries during those, including residency, the past 7 years. Every time I get kicked out, they were like, well, you're such an interesting person. Remember, we took a chance on you. You are the imposter. What if, we'll just round you up every time. But why do you want to be a doctor, right? Why don't you just travel? Because at this point, all these people have traveled with me. I have started a travel company during this time. It's like, you should just run this travel company. I'm still a bartender. Being a doctor is the closest thing to bartending I can think of, right? You're behind a bar in the ER. You have to see the same amount of people in a short amount of time. You spend 5 minutes with every person, making them love you before you have to see the next person, right? I'm just making this shit on the spot, right? And I was like telling them, like, you, the attending physician, the one that's interviewing me, you're like the bar manager. You're like my boss who like goes around, like, hey, how you liking my bar? You don't do anything. And the attending physician takes off his glasses and goes, that was the best damn answer I ever heard to that question. And I'm now an ER attending physician and a clinical assistant professor at Mount Sinai, and 8 other hospitals in New York, and I am the worst doctor you'll ever meet. We forget what it means to be ourselves in the moment. It's not about following your dreams. Fuck your dreams, all right? Your dreams will let you down. Your dreams will pull you to places that you don't need to be because you're not focusing on the moment. Commit to your present. Commit to what you need to do in the moment without any idea or any expectations what you have to be. That's the myth, because this is real life. That's my story. I still ended up becoming a doctor, but it's not my dad's doctor or Asia America's doctor or the stereotypical doctor. I'm the doctor, but with this story behind me, with this life lesson. I want to just close on the fact that at a memorial service for my father some time later, his secretary came up to me. I finally met his secretary. He had one. Someone who just, followed him over the years, probably was closer to him than I was. And she came up to me and she was like, oh, you're the son that always argues with Dr. Sun. She's like, you're the son that always argues because he's screaming and yelling all the time, and we always are listening in on the phone conversation. It's so juicy, and you're screaming, you're crying, and it's like on a weekly basis. Like, I finally get to meet you. You're like, Dad promised me never to tell you. Every time you have an argument with him, he slams on the phone, and he goes, ugh, closes his eyes, and he looks at me, and he goes, I'm so proud of him that he knows what to stand up for. I'm so proud that he knows to always fight back and stand up for what he believes in, even though I don't agree with it. But you never, ever tell him that. He never should ever know that. Well, how do you say that? Maybe she made it up to make me feel better, but self-delusion works well for me. If there's anything I can leave you with, is don't focus on what you can become and what you have to be. Just live in the moment, commit to your present, and just keep writing.